Hey everybody, it's Drag Required. In the video today, we're going to talk about tailwheel airplanes in Microsoft Flight Simulator. How to fly them, how to take off, and how to land, which is the main difference between tailwheel and tricycle gear airplanes. There's a lot of fun airplanes in this game that are tailwheels. Um, and with the visuals of this game, it's I think the most fun that you'll have playing the game. Right now, we're looking at a third-party airplane called the Savage Carbon, and that's from the user Got Gravel on the Microsoft Flight Simulator forums. If you search for Got Gravel or Savage Carbon, you can download this and add it to your community folder. It's a really nice airplane to fly. It's tweaked really well. It's a very easy one to fly, and it'd be a great one to learn on. Um, but if you don't do that, there's also a couple other Piper Cub variants that I would suggest you start with. I wouldn't start with the Pit Special. I wouldn't start with the Extra. Those are a lot higher performance and a lot more difficult to take off and land. So this Savage Carbon is a great one to learn on, and it's what will be featured mostly in the video today. That's the goal of the video, is learn how to take off, learn how to land, so that you can get up there and have some fun, landing on gravel bars and landing in fields and getting the airplane turned upside down with the pits and the extra. What this video isn't is a thorough lesson on tailwheel flying and concepts of tailwheel airplanes. Um, there's just too much to cover, and the game, it doesn't it's impossible to simulate all of the things involved with that. So the game does a pretty good job, but you're at the mercy of trying to simulate real life, and it doesn't hit it on every cylinder, but it does a pretty good job. So that's the goal. Let's have fun in tailwheel airplanes and learn how to take off and land. So I want to talk first about what is a tailwheel airplane and how it's different. We're looking at our Savage Carbon here, and we'll notice that we have three wheels. Our two main wheels are under the wings, and then our tail wheel is at the back of the airplane, and that's a tailwheel configuration. And let's look at a Cessna 152. And this is a tricycle gear airplane, and that's probably pretty much what you see when you look at an airplane, all the way from this 152 up to a Boeing 747, is a tricycle gear configuration. Our two main wheels are here, and then we have a nose wheel. And let's talk about center of gravity with the airplane, and how the tricycle gear is a lot more stable because of landing gear location related to the center of gravity. So if we could balance this 152 on a pin top or on our mouse pointer, it would balance right about there. That's where our center of gravity would be. And we'll notice that our main wheels are behind that. Here's our center of gravity, and here's the main landing gear. And that creates a very stable condition during takeoff and landing. On our tailwheel airplane, we have the opposite. We have our center of gravity still right about here, if we could balance this thing, but our main wheels are in front of that. And imagine if we took a shopping cart and put something really heavy in it, and then we pushed it from behind. We just pushed the front of the cart backwards and let go. All of that weight in the cart would want to flip around and be in front of the wheels. And that's what's going on with our tailwheel airplanes. It either wants to flip around to the side and come to the front, or it wants to flip over the top, and that weight wants to be in front of these main wheels. So let's learn how to manage that. And before we do, let's look at this 152, and let's talk about side load. What I mean is, let's say if we're landing and we are not coordinated. We're not tracking down the runway, and we side load those main gear. So this little clip is just a demonstration of what happens if we land in a side load. Now watch that nose when we touch down. I won't be using any rudder. Let me back it up. I won't be using any rudder on touchdown, but watch that nose. Watch how it just, watch it snap right back, right there. Watch that nose just point right back down the runway. And that's that stability that I'm talking about. As soon as those main wheels touch, that weight is already in front, and it just points that nose right back down the runway. We get a little better demonstration here. So no rudder input, touchdown. Boom, that nose just comes right back down the runway. It's nice and stable. Okay, so that's a tricycle gear configuration. Now let's watch it on a tailwheel airplane with our Savage Carbon here. And you'll kind of see that shopping cart deal where the weight just wants to spin around. And in this clip, I am using rudder to try to keep it straight, but you can see that as soon as we touch down, that weight wants to come back around and be in front of those main wheels. So we need to use our rudder. Let's see what happens on this one. Yeah, so as soon as that main touched, we wanted to swing kind of counterclockwise around. So that's what you'll work on is rudder work. Incidentally, I wouldn't suggest using your keyboard for rudder control. You need to have a joystick with a twist axis or some other type of variable rudder input. You won't be successful using the keyboard rudder. Let's look at a little more exaggerated side load demonstration with our pit special. Notice one thing I want to point out with the pits and also with the extra is how narrow this gear stance is. These main wheels are more in towards the center line of that airplane. And that only adds to the lack of stability on the ground with this airplane. So it's even more difficult to control during takeoff and landing. So I think we try to see some side load here. Really, this is just me trying to keep this airplane straight on takeoff and landing. But watch how much that rudder is working. Watch how much that rudder moves. So I think I try to side load a little bit. As soon as that wheel touched, down, we tried to swing around there. That weight wanted to be in front of those mains. And so watch that rudder move to try and keep it straight. Okay. We'll get one more demo here of that. So there's a big side load that airplane just wants to spin right around. So and then we're dragging a wingtip, dragging another wingtip. So that's the other difficulty with the pits, is that with the biplane and with the real low, gear stance, if you're sideways at all, you risk dragging a wingtip. For all these demos, crash detection is turned off. And damage and all that is turned off. So I would suggest doing that while you're practicing. Just turn all that off, and that way you're not restarting a bunch. Okay, so let's talk about some takeoffs. We'll go through some different types of takeoffs, and then some different types of landings, and then we'll also go through some common errors or some things that will probably happen to you as you're learning this, and how to fix it. So this first demo on a takeoff will be back on our Savage Carbon, and I don't touch the controls. All I'm using here on this takeoff is just a little bit of rudder to keep the nose straight. And we're at our takeoff flap setting. There's full power. Now I'm not all I'm doing is touching the rudder. Okay, that tail came up on its own. We're accelerating down the runway, and eventually it'll just fly on its own. I haven't touched the elevator at all. There we go, we're flying away. So if you do nothing, this airplane will fly. Obviously we'll need to use some rudder to keep it straight, but this airplane wants to be in the air. It wants to fly. Okay, so that's just a real a real easy way to take off is just add the power, keep the nose straight, and off we go. That's with no wind. If you have a crosswind, that's going to be a lot more difficult to do. Okay, so two types of takeoffs that we'll talk about will be a 3-point takeoff and a normal takeoff. So this first demo is a 3-point takeoff, and what I mean is when we lift off the ground, we'll be in a 3-point attitude, like we are now stopped. Our main wheels and our tail wheel are down, and that's a 3-point attitude. And notice this elevator, this stick is all the way back. So when we start our takeoff in a tailwheel airplane, we'll start with that stick all the way back. And we'll talk about why that is here in a second. But let's watch our 3-point takeoff. I think for a lot of these, I am just using a lower power setting. I think about 3,500 RPM or 4,000 RPM or so in this airplane, in this Savage Carbon, is all you need really to get off the ground. You don't need full power, and using full power is going to be more difficult to control. So that's a tip. Just start with a moderate, medium power setting as you're practicing. So here's our 3-point takeoff. Stick's buried, and here we go. We're just waiting, and it'll just start flying. That's about as easy as it gets. As it starts to fly, you'll relax the back pressure to maintain that 3-point attitude, and away we go. And we can look at the same thing from inside the cockpit. I think most of us fly from inside the cockpit, but a lot of these demos I wanted to show the external view and what's going on. But here we are with our 3-point takeoff from inside, and let's find where that horizon is. If we look out the sides, we can see that horizon and where it crosses our windscreen. So that's our 3-point attitude. Let's keep that in mind as we go. We can look out the sides to stay straight. So we have a little patch of the runway here, and we have a little patch of the runway here, and you can use that to stay straight during your takeoff roll. You really can't. This doesn't help you out front, but we can look out the side and use rudder to help stay straight as we roll down the runway. So here's our 3-point takeoff from inside. Again, just a medium power setting. Sticks all the way back, and we're just waiting. Rudder to keep it straight. We're just waiting. As soon as we start flying, relax some back pressure. Relax some back pressure. And keep that 3-point attitude. Keep that horizon right there. And now we're starting to accelerate, and now we're flying. Okay, so that's a 3-point takeoff. The other type of takeoff would be just a normal takeoff in a tailwheel airplane, or a 2-wheel takeoff. So let's look at the kind of dynamics of that. This will be just stopped on the runway with the brake set, but the sequence of control inputs we'll watch. So stopped on the runway, sticks all the way back, elevators up. And as we accelerate down the runway, we'll relax the back pressure, add some forward pressure to raise the tail up, and that lets us accelerate to a safe flying speed. And then once we're at a safe flying speed, we can add back pressure to raise the nose and fly away. Very similar to what we saw with our no control takeoff. When we just did nothing, that tail comes up, we accelerate, and then the airplane flies away. So let's watch that. So we'll add power, that tail comes up to our takeoff attitude, and we're just going to hold this attitude as we accelerate. So what happened there? The tail comes up, we just reduced our angle of attack a lot. Okay, and that's the difference with this takeoff is you're taking away some lift. You're reducing angle of attack so that we can accelerate on the ground and fly away. Okay, so we'll bring the tail up, accelerate, and then at a safe flying speed, we'll bring the tail back down and fly away. Okay, so let's look at that from an external view. Brakes release, sticks all the way back. Moderate power setting, we'll bring the tail up. Rudder, rudder, rudder. Keep that nose straight. Rudder, rudder, rudder. There's a safe flying speed, and off we go right before we hit the dirt. But that's the sequence for just a normal takeoff. Bring the tail up, accelerate, and fly away from the runway. And we can look at that again from inside the airplane. Okay, so here's our 3-point attitude. There's a horizon. Brakes are released, just a moderate power setting. We'll add some forward pressure, bring that tail up, rudder, rudder, rudder. We're accelerating. Rudder, 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 and there's a safe flying speed. We'll just let it come off the runway. Okay, so that's our normal takeoff. We can see a lot more out the front with that. And we're at a point much above stall speed at liftoff, so that's an advantage to just a normal takeoff. What happens when we overdo it? For a normal takeoff, well, we go back to our shopping cart. Okay, so here's a nose over. Here's what can happen if you add too much forward pressure on takeoff or landing. This is why we want to keep that stick all the way back in our lap to keep positive control. So that there's that shopping cart, that weight just comes right over. Okay, so those are our takeoffs for tailwheel airplanes. Next we'll talk about landings, and we have two types we'll talk about. Again, a 3-point landing and a wheel landing where we land on just the two main wheels. So first let's go through let's go through a 3-point landing first, and then we'll talk about the wheel landing. So with a 3-point landing, we'll look at it from the outside, but that touchdown attitude, we're looking for that same picture, that same horizon on the windscreen at touchdown as we are just sitting there taxiing around. So let's take a look at it from the outside. This is also known as a full stall landing. But here we are at Deer Park on approach to runway 34. I think there's no wind. I think the wind's calm. And as we fly to the runway, we'll start working that power back. The power's back at idle, and we'll just hold it off. We'll just pull back to get that 3-point attitude, pull back, and just wait. There we are, touchdown, all 3 wheels. Okay, and that stick is buried. Look at that. Look at that elevator. Okay, as soon as we're down, that stick comes all the way back. All 3 wheels are on the ground. Keep it there. Keep that stick back. Okay, and that'll help with stability. So there's our 3-point landing. Let's look at it again from the inside. Full stall landing. Back at Deer Park. Okay, and we're looking for that 3-point attitude. We know that at a full stall, we know where that horizon's going to be. So we're just flying to the runway. Start working that nose up. Power's coming back to idle. And just work that nose up. Hold it, hold it, hold it, hold it. Touchdown, bury that stick. Bring that stick all the way back and hold it there. And we don't need brakes, just let it roll out. You can use brakes as you get slowed down, but don't touch the brakes. Okay, so there's our 3-point landing from inside the airplane. Next, we'll talk about a wheel landing. And we'll look at it from external view and internal view. So our wheel landing is going to be touching down on the 2 main wheels, and then immediately, as soon as those wheels touch, we'll add forward stick. And what that'll do, as soon as we touch down, if we add forward stick, the nose will come down a little bit, and we're reducing the angle of attack. At the moment of touchdown, let's reduce angle of attack so that we stay on the ground. Okay, let's get rid of some lift so that those wheels stay on the ground. Let's take a look at that. And then we'll progressively add more forward stick as we roll out. So let's see how that looks from the outside. This Savage Carbon has a full 60 degrees of flap, so we get an extra flap setting over the Cub. And it's a short takeoff and landing airplane, so when you get really good at this, you can be down and stopped before those numbers on the runway if you wanted to. I can't, but if you practice enough. So here we go for our wheel landing, looking at it from the outside. Same approach, just normal approach. We'll arrest our descent rate and just wait for those wheels to touch. Wait for them to touch. As soon as they touch, forward stick. Forward stick. Keep those wheels planted. Rudder, rudder, rudder. That rudder's really important. And then when we're done flying, when that tail is done flying, bury it. Bring that stick all the way back. Okay, let's watch that again. So hold it off as soon as those mains touch. A little bit of forward pressure, keep it on the ground, and we'll just keep that attitude as we roll out until the tail comes down. The tail's done flying. As soon as that tail is done flying, keep it there. Full back stick to keep that tail wheel on the ground. Okay, and that's a wheel landing. Let's look at it from the inside. Oh, incidentally, if anybody knows, if you can tell me why when I start, the altimeter starts at a Category 5 hurricane setting, it's all the way down at like 28 inches. I'll give you $1 if you can tell me why. That looks a little better for Deer Park. Okay. So this will be our wheel landing from inside the airplane, cockpit view. I'll just roll us forward a little bit till we're on final. Here we go. Okay, so here we are. We're a little fast, and power's coming back. Watch how quick that airspeed runs back with that Savage Carbon. With our monster flap settings. Okay, so just a normal approach. Again, watch that horizon at the point of touchdown. So we're flying it onto the runway, arresting our descent rate. As soon as those mains touch, a little bit of forward pressure, reduce that angle of attack. Reduce that angle of attack. Keep it on the ground. Keep it on the ground. Okay, and as we slow down, that tail will stop flying. Now, bury that stick back. Bury that stick back to keep it on the ground. Okay, that's a wheel landing. I want to look at, let me skip forward, and let's look at what happens if let's do a wheel landing, but let's bring this tail down too early in the sequence, okay? So here's a wheel landing where I don't let the tail come down on its own. As soon as we touch down, we do a wheel landing, and then I bring that stick back too early in the sequence. Okay, let's see what happens. Okay, I think I bounce. There's a little bit of a bouncy. That's okay. I recover. There's a decent wheel landing. Now watch that tail. Oh, that tail came down. Oh, now we're flying again, and off we go. So that's a common error with a wheel landing is bringing the tail down too early. If the airplane's still ready to fly, as soon as you bring that tail down, what happens to angle of attack? It increases. And if there's enough lift, oh, the airplane will start flying again, and that's exactly what happened. Okay, so that tail's going to come down, and off we go again. Oh, we're not done flying, and over we go. And if you notice, I still had some throttle in there that did not help the situation. So, okay, so that's a common mistake with a wheel landing. Okay. To fix that, let's say that happens to you, and you end up on your back. One great trick is the slew function. So here we are upside down. Well, we don't want to end and restart and wait all the time for the game to load. So let's hit Y on the keyboard to enter slew mode. And then let's hit Y again. So hit Y again, and here we are on the runway, upright. And sometimes the engine quits when you do that, so just hit Control E to get it going again. But that's a great way to practice these, to get some reps in. Is if you do end up crashing, just slew Y on the keyboard, and then turn slew off, Y again, and that'll put you back upright. Okay, the last thing that we'll talk about is some crosswind techniques. So we're back here at Deer Park. I think I gave us about a 10 or 12 knot crosswind. 270, so we have some left to right. And on a takeoff, on a crosswind takeoff, we have full back stick, and then we're also going to put ailerons into the wind. So we have left stick as well. That left aileron is up, the right one's down, pointing into the wind. And as we bring that tail up, that shopping cart wants to spin around. We want to weather vane into the wind. So a lot of rudder control. Use that rudder and keep that upwind wing down. Okay, so let's watch that. It's easy with the twist axis. It's easy to add some rudder inadvertently. Don't do that. You'll have to practice, but just ailerons and elevator for this. So here's some left to right crosswind. Let's see what that looks like. Accelerate, we'll bring the tail up, rudder, rudder, rudder. Okay, and then we'll kind of come up on our upwind main and lift off. And if we just let go, here's neutral controls. You see how it weather vanes into the wind. So that's where it wants to be. We need to stay down the runway to prevent that. So we'll use that upwind aileron to do that. I think we come back around for a landing here in a crosswind. And let's take a look at that. Again, we have some left to right crosswind. Here we are, weather vaned into the wind. Let's get tracking straight down the runway. And as we come in, we'll transition from this crab. We'll add some right rudder to straighten it out and some left aileron to bring that wing down. We'll touch down on that upwind main. There's a wheel landing, forward stick, rudder, rudder, rudder. Wait until that tail is done flying. Stick it, hold it there. Hold that tail wheel on the ground. Okay, so that's a quick demo of some crosswind technique. I think I covered it. I think again, we didn't get a lot into real deep concepts with this, but hopefully that's enough to have you practice some takeoffs and landings. And again, have fun with it. This is the most fun you'll have in this game. So I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, let me know, and we'll see you next time. Thanks.